Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into the world of William Faulkner this time.
Oh, Faulkner?
Yeah, one of America's literary giants. And we've got a whole stack of listener materials here. Articles, essays, even some personal notes, all looking at Faulkner from different angles.
Different lenses, always fascinating.
Exactly. And, he's famous for those southern settings, right? But his writing, it goes way deeper than that. We're going to dig into those layers, uncover how Faulkner tackles these big universal themes: memory, trauma, relationships, the whole human experience.
The human condition, exactly.
And to help us untangle it all, we have our Faulkner expert.
Glad to be here. Faulkner's work, it never gets old. It's like a puzzle box, full of hidden meanings.
Okay, puzzle box. I like that. So first things first, Faulkner, the modernist. What does that even mean?
Well, modernism was this huge shift in the early 20th century. Art, music, literature, everything. And Faulkner, he was right there shaking things up, experimenting with how we tell stories, breaking all the old rules.
So not your typical Once Upon a Time.
Not even close. More like diving straight into the character's thoughts and feelings. That's where stream of consciousness comes in.
Oh, yeah, stream of consciousness.
Huh?
Faulkner's famous for that.
Right. He lets us inside their minds. Unfiltered thoughts, memories, emotions, all jumbled up.
You're making me think of The Sound and the Fury. Remember reading that in college? Benji's section especially. Totally lost me.
Benji, yeah. He experiences the world differently, and Faulkner, he puts you right there in that fragmented reality. It's not an easy read.
Definitely not.
But it's powerful. It helps you understand Benji in a way you couldn't otherwise.
Okay, I get that. And it's not just stream of consciousness, right? Faulkner plays with time, too. Jumps all over the place.
Oh, absolutely. No straight timelines here. It's flashbacks, memories layered on top of each other. Like, take Absalom. Absalom. It's a mystery, But the pieces are scattered. You have to work to put them together.
Sounds like a challenge.
It is. But that's the point. Faulkner, he wants you to be an active reader. Just like in life, things aren't neat and tidy. Memories pop up. We reinterpret things. The past, it keeps affecting the present.
It's not just passively reading a story.
No way. You're in it, trying to make sense of it. And then there's another layer. Multiple perspectives.
Ah, yes. The same story, but from different characters' eyes.
Exactly. It's like looking at a tapestry from different angles. Each character's got their own bias, their own version of the truth. So you get these contradictions.
Like in As I Lay Dying, right?
15 narrators, each Bungeon family member, their own take on burying Addie, their mother. Brilliant. You engage with each of them, you see their world, and you decide. Whose story do you believe? If any.
If any, yeah. Okay, so we've got stream of consciousness, jumbled timelines, and conflicting viewpoints. I'm already feeling a bit unsettled, which I guess leads us to Southern Gothic.
Yeah, there it is. Faulkner, you can't separate him from that tradition. Decaying settings, grotesque characters, dark themes, violence, all tapping into the anxieties of the South.
Not exactly Moonlight and Magnolias.
Nope. More like crumbling mansions. Those swampy backwoods, full of secrets. It's symbolic, you see. The decay, the degeneration, the South after the Civil War, haunted by its past, still dealing with social and racial tensions simmering beneath the surface.
And then you've got those characters. Some are just plain disturbing.
Yeah, you think of like Popeye and Sanctuary, brutal. Represents that darkness in society, the things we don't want to see.
You see squirm a little.
He does, but he makes us think about what's human, what's civilized, where those lines blur.
Okay, so it's more than just a creepy story.
Much more. And speaking of the human mind, a lot of critics, they look at Faulkner through a Freudian lens.
Oh yeah, psychoanalysis, unconscious desires, all that.
Right. His characters, they're driven by these things. Repressed memories, trauma, like ghosts from the past shaping their actions.
I'm thinking of Quentin Compson again, his obsession with Caddy, his sister. It's like a Freudian case study.
You could see it that way. His fixation on her purity, her sexuality, it's all there, even if Faulkner doesn't say it outright.
So there's a whole other story happening underneath.
Exactly, and it brings us to this trauma and memory. These characters, they're marked by their past. It shapes how they see the world, their relationships, everything.
So even though it's set in the South, it's about these universal human experiences.
That's why Faulkner's still relevant. He gets to the heart of what it means to be human, trying to make sense of the world, all that baggage we carry.
This has been eye-opening. We've barely scratched the surface, but I'm already seeing Faulkner differently.
Oh, there's always more to discover. Every time you read him, something new pops up. Another layer.
Before we get totally lost in Faulkner land, though, let's take a little break. When we come back, we'll dive into even more critical perspectives. Post-colonial theory, structuralism, All that good stuff. Stay with us.
So we're talking Faulkner. And it's wild how his work, even though it's rooted in the South, it speaks to these bigger issues, power, identity, colonialism.
Okay, hold on. Colonialism. How does that fit in with Faulkner?
Well, think about it. Post-colonial theory, it helps us understand how these systems of power, oppression, the kind that gets set up during colonization, they don't just disappear, they have this lasting impact.
You're saying we see that in Faulkner's South?
Exactly. The legacy of slavery, deep-seated racism, African Americans fighting for their identity, their place in a society that still tries to control them. These are all things Faulkner was grappling with.
So it's not just about what happened, but the ripple effects, the psychological and social stuff.
Right. And he gives voice to the marginalized, the silenced, the other, as they say. Take Joe Christmas in Light in August, for example. His mixed race heritage, it makes him an outsider, someone who doesn't fit those neat racial categories the South tries to impose.
He's always searching for his place, right?
Yeah.
And that struggle is tied to all of this.
Exactly. It adds a whole new layer to his alienation, the violence that surrounds him. Faulkner was engaging with these social and racial issues head-on.
Okay, so we've got modernism, Southern Gothic, Freud, A&D post-colonial theory. Is there anything else we can throw at Faulkner?
Oh, there's always more. Structuralism, for one.
Structuralism. Sounds a bit intimidating.
It's not that bad. Basically, it looks at the underlying structures in a text, the patterns that shape meaning. Think of binary oppositions like good versus evil, light versus dark, order versus chaos. They create tension, meaning.
Okay, so like how Faulkner uses those oppositions to explore guilt and innocence, maybe? Or the clash between old traditions and the modern world.
You got it. You could even argue that the structure of his novels, all fragmented and multi-layered, it reflects that structuralist idea, that truth is relative depending on where you're standing.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So all these different approaches, they can shed new light on things.
Exactly. And we haven't even touched on postmodernism yet.
Oh, right, postmodernism. That's got to be a whole other can of worms.
It is. Postmodernism challenges those traditional ideas of truth, authority, meaning. It's all about ambiguity, fragmentation, the idea that there are multiple realities, often conflicting.
And how does Faulkner fit into that?
Unreliable narrators, jumbled timelines, always questioning what's true. It's all there in his work, like a precursor to postmodernism.
Wow. So he's ahead of his time in a lot of ways.
He is, and that's why we're still talking about him. He makes us think, challenges our assumptions.
My head is spinning. In a good way, though. But with all this theory, it's easy to forget that Faulkner, he was writing about a specific place and time, the South after the Civil War.
You're right, that historical and cultural context, it's crucial. You can't really understand the decay, the racial tension without understanding what the South went through. Reconstruction, Jim Crow.
So it's both universal A&D rooted in that specific context.
Exactly. That's what makes him so complex, so rewarding to study.
This has been quite a journey. Modernism to postmodernism, Southern Gothic to psychoanalysis, even post-colonial theory and structuralism.
I'm feeling a bit Faulknered out, if I'm honest.
It's a lot to take in, but hopefully it gives you a sense of just how rich and deep Faulkner's work is. He's a writer who really makes you work for it, but the rewards are there.
Before we jump into a specific novel, any parting thoughts on all this critical stuff?
Just remember, all these different theories, they're tools, they help us see things from different angles. But in the end, it's the power of Faulkner's stories, his language, his characters, that really grab you.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to take a closer look at one of Faulkner's most iconic novels, The Sound and the Fury. We'll see how all these ideas we've talked about, how they come together in this incredibly powerful and moving work of literature. Stick with us.
Okay, so The Sound and the Fury. It's considered one of Faulkner's best, but it's also, well, notoriously difficult.
It's a challenge, yeah, but worth it. You get this family falling apart, told through their memories, their perspectives, all broken up, just like their lives.
And we've talked about all those techniques. Stream of consciousness, multiple narrators, The Sound and the Fury. It's like the textbook example, right?
You could say that. 4 sections, each with a different narrator. The Compson brothers. Benji, Quentin, Jason, each one experiencing the story, the world in their own way. And Faulkner, he nails it with that stream of consciousness.
Benji's section, though. I mean, it's like trying to swim through fog. His mind jumps all over. Time is all warped.
Right, because Benji, he has a developmental disability. His perception is different. And Faulkner, he puts you right there inside Benji's head. It makes you question, like, what is reality anyway?
Yeah, it gets you thinking. And there's Quentin. So much despair, this feeling of doom.
Crenton, he's stuck in the past, obsessed with Caddy, his sister, and her innocence or the loss of it. His narration, it's all broken up. Flashbacks, trying to deal with guilt, shame, maybe some repressed desires. It's powerful stuff. The past, it just eats him up.
And then you've got Jason, the most cynical one, right?
Jason's a piece of work. His narration's a bit more grounded than the others, but he's still unreliable. Driven by greed, resentment, he wants revenge. And his section, it's almost like a commentary on the South itself. The old ways dying out, that kind of thing.
Okay, so we're getting 3 completely different takes on this family, their downfall. Each brother with his own baggage, his own way of seeing things.
Right. And then the 4th section, it shifts. You get an omniscient narrator, more distant, objective.
Like a bird's eye view.
Exactly. It gives you some closure, but it's still ambiguous. You're left wondering about the Compsons, their tragedy, how their individual stories reflect these bigger forces, historical, societal.
You know, it's crazy how all those critical lenses we talked about, modernism, Southern Gothic, Freud, even postcolonialism, structuralism, they all fit the sound and the fury.
It's all there, adds to the richness, the layers. It's a book that demands multiple readings. Every time you see something new, another connection.
Makes me want to pick it up again with all these new ideas in mind.
You should. And if you're feeling brave, try Absalom. Absalom next. It tackles some of the same things: history, memory, Southern identity. Another masterpiece.
Wow. Okay. Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on today. This Faulkner deep dive, it's been intense.
He's not an easy writer, that's for sure.
No, but he makes you think.
He does. And that's what great literature should do.
Absolutely. To everyone listening, if you're just getting started with Faulkner, don't be afraid to jump in. It's complex, but take your time. Be open to the different layers, the different interpretations.
It's a journey. And remember, good literature, it's not meant to be just passively absorbed. It's meant to be grappled with, questioned. It should change you in some way. And Faulkner, he has that power.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this Faulkner adventure. Until next time, happy reading, everyone.